was a member of the Kentucky House of Representatives, 1928 to 1930, was a Pulaski County judge between 1930 and 1938, and a member of the Board of Trustees of the University of Kentucky from 1935 to 1946. He served during the Second World War in the United States Army between 1942 and 46, attaining the rank of captain. He was elected circuit judge of the 28th Judicial District of Kentucky in 1945 and served until his resignation in November of 1946. On November 5th, 1946, he was elected as a Republican to the United States Senate to fill the vacancy caused by the resignation of Albert B. Chandler, and served from November 6, 1946 to January 3, 1949. He was not re-elected in 1948, so he resumed his law practice. In 1949, he was the delegate to the General Assembly of the United Nations and alternate delegate in 1950 and 1951. He served as advisor to the Secretary of State at the London and Brussels meetings of the Council of Ministers of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization in 1950. On November 4th, 1952, he was again elected as a Republican to the United States Senate to fill the vacancy caused by the death of Virgil M. Chapman, and served from November 5th, 1952 to January 3rd, 1955. From 1955 to 56, he served as the ambassador to India and Nepal. In 1968, he was a delegate to the United Nations General Assembly. In 1956, Senator Cooper was elected as a Republican to the United States Senate, filling the vacancy caused by the death of Alvin W. Barkley. He served as a senator from November 7th, 1956 to January 3rd, 1973. From 1974 to 76, he once again served as an ambassador, this time to the German Democratic Republic. Senator Cooper resumed the practice of law in Washington, D.C., and was a resident of Somerset, Kentucky and Washington, D.C., until his death in Washington on February 21st, 1991. He is buried in Arlington National Cemetery, Arlington, Virginia. It's quite an impressive resume there. Now to present our today's speaker. Today's presentation originated from the Junior Women's Club History Walk, which was done last August. The organizers of that group set actors at various historic places throughout the city. They asked today's presenter to tell about the square and about John Sherman Cooper. He chose instead to play the role of the statue itself. For that reason, we have reenacted the town square of Somerset, Kentucky on this stage. Bruce Singleton is an attorney in Somerset. He is no stranger to Somerset Community College theater performances, having acted in roles here over the last 20 years. You will hear many of John Sherman Cooper's own words as our presenter speaks today. As a large part of his presentation for the performance, he has watched the videos, listened to the audio, and has tried to determine what the senator would say if he were here today. It is my privilege to introduce you to the gentleman from Kentucky, Reflections on a Life of Service.
Well, good afternoon. Perhaps if I stretch a bit. I've been standing looking over this square for quite a long time. I like my new digs. I hope you weren't expecting me to give you a speech today. I'm a truly horrible public speaker. No, what I'd like to do is just to talk to you a little bit about the time that I lived on this earth. And though my mortal remains remain in Arlington, my heart is here. Born here in Somerset, just up the street behind me here on Main Street. My father, John Sherman Cooper, was the man from whom I received my name. He, in turn, received his name from Sherman. Very much Union sympathizers, you might say. And as I grew up here in Somerset, I grew to love the place, the soil, and the people. Went to Somerset High School, tell by seeing how tall and lanky I am. Being 6 foot 1.5 inches tall, they called me bird legs. I was a gifted athlete and I knew that, but you know, that was not the whole point of being in Somerset High School. The point of being in Somerset High School was the tradition that was then, and of course is now. Dad wanted me to go to Centre College. I therefore went to Centre College. And there I learned some valuable lessons before I went on to Yale and ultimately to Harvard. But Dad was not to be around forever. And because of that, I had to come home, helping to raise my siblings, helping to finance their educations, but ultimately I was able to do that. You know, it's probably my family that had the most influence on my decision to be in politics. Of my ancestors, 6 were judges or county judges, including my father, Sherman Cooper. And so it seemed my destiny to also be the county judge. As it happens, the time that I got it was about the worst time you could. It was in 1929 when all of the financial markets of the world came tumbling down and crashing around about the people. The poorest people here on the planet, it seemed to me, were the ones who were my constituency. And that made me feel real bad. You know what we would do early in the morning? We would stoke up a fire right there in the courthouse, right off to my right over here. And we would stoke up that fire and there'd be a lot of people come in. Sure, I was the ultimate arbiter of a lot of disputes, but I was also the place where you would go and you would be able to talk to somebody. Kind of like the mayor of the county, I always said, being county judge. And as the day wore on, they would start out real close and they would get farther and farther and farther back from the fire until such time as we realized it's time to stoke up the fire again. Put some more in, people got closer to it. And thus this is the way the days went. You know, I felt very sorry for many of these very, very poor people. Not that it was my job, but there was times when I could not help but reach into my pocket, take out $1 or $2, maybe $3, because for them that made the biggest of differences. And then, of course, came politics. We go forward in time to when I decided I would like to run for governor. I was unsuccessful in my bid in the primary. And when World War II came, here I was, 41 years of age, enlisting. They wanted to make me an officer. Certainly I would have tried, but I did not want the job. I asked that I be made a private, and then being a private, I went to officer candidate school, and there went as a second lieutenant to Europe to work for General Patton. You know, I never have been much to wear a watch, and they always called me, well, the late Lieutenant Cooper. Punctuality is not something that I have, I guess, valued as much as I have the service that we do. You know, it was very, very interesting to me that when I was on a mission working for the general, seems that an Italian princess of some kind had been abducted by the Nazis, and he detailed me to go on a mission to try and find her. What I ended up finding was a concentration camp at Buchenwald. And realizing of all of the bad things that had happened to all of these poor poor people who were there. General Patton was not real impressed by the German people and their saying, we didn't know this was going on. So one by one, 10 by 10, family by family, he paraded them past these places where these Jewish people had been burned. He gave me the great honor of spending some time there and doing the preparation of this country for a new system of legal justice. While there, I found that I had been elected in absentia to come back here to Somerset to the 28th Judicial Circuit to be a judge. And thus I was able to come back to Somerset. You know, those of us who are from Somerset always have this red clay on our shoes and an undying devotion to returning to home. But my job here was not going to be so simple or for so long. Indeed, we did a number of good things. But when A.B. Happy Chandler decided to become commissioner of baseball, I got to go to the Senate. You know, watching these people who live in this area with their poverty, with their inability to eke out a pleasant, simple living was not something that was readily available to everyone. They had certainly their crops, certainly they had, well, tobacco, but this was not a stable thing, having tobacco to be able to raise. I knew it was necessary as a senator representing these people in order to be able to protect the crop of tobacco. So what did we do? We began a system whereby tobacco itself could be protected. Subsidies, allotments, so that these people who would work from early in the spring until late into the fall would be able to have that year-end harvest. That money's made from hands tied of tobacco. I was not to keep my job as the senator because I really wasn't one who would lockstep with my party. When asked, are you a Democrat or are you a Republican? He said, I am a registered Democrat, but I must vote my conscience. Then came the 50s, and I got elected again. In the interim, I had been spending my time in New Delhi in India and seeing those people there in India and thinking of the people back home. You know, poor people are the same everywhere. People themselves are the same everywhere. And the fact that these people were of different heritage, of different religion, of a different race, made no difference to me because I could feel them exactly as I felt my people who were always my constituents. I was able to come back and run again, but once again, I lost again. Losing for the Senate twice, and it was not until much later that I was actually able to be elected for my last time and to keep the term. And in that last term, I met this wonderful young man named Jack Kennedy. Perhaps it was the difference in our age. Maybe it was because I was a Republican. I can't describe it. But I must say that it was he and I who became such fast friends that we were able to speak on any number of subjects, no matter that he was on one side and I was on the other side of the aisle. Truly, I did support the nominee of my party in 1960. But when Richard Nixon did not succeed, and Jack Kennedy did, 3 weeks after he took his office, Jack came to my house for dinner. Nice little private dinner with him and his lovely bride and me and Lorraine. He was like a boy. He was very much like a boy, saying, "I've got a new house too, and I'm going to take you to dinner at my new house." We went through that new house, knocking on every door, seeing every door. Woke up Johnny even. It was at one of these meetings, one of these times when we were spending private, personal time, that this young president asked me to do a top secret mission for him. He loved reading James Bond, and he made me a secret agent for him. And what I was to do was to go to New Delhi, and I was go to Moscow, and I was to scope out things for him, and to be able to report back to him. And thus I did. I reported back to him in great detail those things that he had told me to do. It was another president, Lyndon Baines Johnson, who just 3 years later asked me to go on a fact-finding mission for him. Because he asked that I go to Dallas along with my colleagues in order to search out the details and facts for the murder of my young friend, my young president. And this I faithfully reported as well. These are the things that we learn in service to our presidents. These are the things that we learn in our service to our country. Ultimately, these are the things that we learn in our service to our people, our constituency. And they are that people never, ever change. There's always a struggle for power. There's always one person wanting to be stronger than the other. There's always one wanting to have more stuff, more things than the other. And that is why we have the politics. You know, I became increasingly deaf as I got increasingly older. And when I made my determination that I did not wish to seek the office of Senate again, I made that known, and I did not. But I did not happily retire. Because when the time came that when the German Democratic Republic was formed, I too got to be an ambassador again, once again, to serve my country. You know, I think it was Frank Church that said to me, "What are you doing going to Germany? You can't speak German and you can't hear English." But I did. I served my country. I served my people. You know, I have been known during my life by many names. I've been known as representative. I've been known as judge. I have been called senator. I've been called ambassador. But today, in summarizing my life, the greatest compliment, the greatest title, the greatest thing that has ever been said to me, the greatest thing that I've ever been called, indeed remains the gentleman from Kentucky.
thank Bruce Singleton for his portrayal of John Sherman Cooper. He'll be coming back in over here in just a second. We'd like to thank all those that have been involved in putting this together today. Judy Covey for preparing the food, and please come up and help yourselves. And those that were here to set it out, Dana and Lynn, Joanne and Susan, appreciate that. How about another round of applause for Bruce Singleton? Are
we back on, or am I using this one? Okay.
We'd like to present you with this. It's a thank you from Somerset Community College.
Thank you very much.
And for the time and effort you put into doing this.
I appreciate this. Dr. Marshall, I have something to present you with. As part of my preparation and listening to the voice of Senator Cooper and in doing the preparation here, there is a production of Kentucky Educational Television done some years ago that has been aired many times, but it never until 2 weeks ago was placed on DVD. It's always in the format of VHS. KET was kind enough to provide me with a copy, a DVD, to watch again and again and again. As much as Somerset does not have one, we now do. If we can make this part of the library, it's called The Gentleman from Kentucky. I do recommend that you see that. Thank you very much for the opportunity to do the job.
Fortunate enough to be born in Somerset or to be here when Senator Cooper was here. But I was fortunate enough to know Dick and Cornelia Cooper very well. And many is the hour that I've spent listening to Dick tell stories about his brother. And you know, I've always said I didn't know John Sherman Cooper, but if he was half the man Dick was, then he was indeed the gentleman from Kentucky. So I really appreciate what you said today and giving us a little bit of a glimpse into his life.
One other acknowledgement I do wish to make is Cornelia, when I was going to start preparing for the role, provided me with an excellent little book that was done during the Kentucky Bicentennial Commission, which I still have. I promise I'll bring it back to you. But I've had it for about 3 months now, and I've read more than once. Wonderful little work called I think Senator Cooper, Gentleman from Kentucky. That word keeps coming up with respect to this man. Okay.
And his brother.
And his brothers.
Yes.
And his brothers, all of them, yes. Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Again, thank you for your attendance, and please come up and make sure that this is empty by the time you leave.
Thank you very much. Good to see you.